Good morning, Sims Nation, and welcome to another edition of the Positively Pat Sims Show. I am Positively Pat Sims, and I am excited to be here this morning. We got an interesting show, to say the least, for you today, and we're going to be covering 4 of the biggest conspiracy theories in pro wrestling. And if there was an industry that was ripe for conspiracy theories, I think it's 1 and 2 right there is Hollywood and pro wrestling. 2 worlds that live on theatrics, that live in this world of suspension of disbelief. And, pro wrestling has always lived in that gray area between reality and performance. The matches are predetermined, the characters are exaggerated, and the storylines are designed to make fans question what is real and what's part of the show. But behind the curtain, there's also real arguments, real business deals, real injuries, real backstage politics, and real life grudges. And that has created some of the most famous conspiracy theories in wrestling history. And tonight, we're going to cover the following here. We've got, was the Montreal Screwjob secretly a work? Were there multiple Ultimate Warriors? Did Vince McMahon send Vince Russo to WCW to destroy it from within? And finally, maybe the most controversial conspiracy theory is, was Randy Savage blacklisted from WWE because of the infamous Stephanie McMahon rumor? And before I introduce you to my special guest today, here's how this is going to work. For each theory, I'm going to lay out all the details of it, the background, explain why certain people believe it and why others do not. And then I'm going to ask our live guests here about what their thoughts are on it, what they know about it, what they believe about it. And I'm also going to ask you guys in the live chat to do the same. We're going to be reading your thoughts and opinions here. And so let me introduce you to my special guest. And since he's already on the screen there, I'm going to start with a fellow DDPY warrior. He is an instructor. He is a TU graduate. He is the one and only George Fenmore. Good morning, George.
Helps if I unmute. Hey, guys. And actually, it's now a 2-time TU graduate.
Look at you.
3. Yeah.
Look at our little George go.
I'm so proud of me. Yay.
How are we doing this morning, George?
Okay, I did not want to get out of bed, but I'm here.
Yeah, that's most mornings. All right.
Yeah, unless I'm at the PC, then this doesn't happen. I don't get it.
Well,
all right.
George, you got to hit us up, though, brother. Give it to me. We are what?
We are live.
There it is. All right. Awesome. All right. And our next guest, he is a WANT radio personality. He is a very, very good friend of mine. And he is the man that probably does the most homework leading into these shows. He never comes unprepared. He is the most professional man that I probably have ever known in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one and only Benny the Jet Scala. Good morning, Benny.
Well, thank you for that great intro. And I will say it's always better to be a live guest than something else, as DDP would say. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
I love it. All right. And finally, last but certainly not least, he is the Diamond Standard. You all know him. You all love him. Well, not all of you, but you all know him. And that is the one and only Doc Haywood. Good morning, Doc.
Well, I'm down here in the Baja, and I can tell you, jet fuel cannot pin a man like Bret the Hitman Hart. Doing my very poor Jesse the Body impression. The number one wrestling conspiracist I would say would be the Body. Oh man, we're in for some spicy stuff today.
Well, Jesse even had his own show about like
Yeah.
his own television show about conspiracy. I remember he had one about lizard people. I laughed through most of it. And
I may have been married to one of the lizard people at one point. I don't know.
Oh man.
Let's hope that doesn't show up in court someday.
Yeah. Benny Grandmaster's talking about the double cross conspiracy. Which theory exactly is he referring to?
The double cross.
He says, "Can we talk about the double cross conspiracy?" Benny will know, with a little smiley face.
No, I don't. I'm sorry. Double cross.
Yeah, so Grandmaster or the Syndicate Monopoly. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. I think he gives me a little bit more credit than I deserve.
Yeah,
that does not sound familiar.
All of my energy went towards these four. So I have nothing else to talk about today other than these four.
I prepped for these four.
Right. And just so you guys know, this is a part one. We're not going to do these for the next few weeks or whatever. It's just there are so many pro wrestling conspiracy theories that I just picked four of the ones that I knew that I thought were entertaining. And I just thought, okay, let's run with those. And then the next time we come around to doing some more conspiracy theories, that'll be part two. And then we'll have because I'm sure we could do like 30 parts on pro wrestling conspiracy theories. So my wife says, the Montreal Screwjob, the real life double cross, ? All right. Well, since we're talking about it, why don't we start there? Our very first segment of the night is the Montreal Screwjob. Was it secretly a work? All right. And basically, here is the basic theory here. The Montreal Screwjob happened in 1997 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. The match was Bret the Hitman Hart versus Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship. The official story is that Bret Hart was legitimately double-crossed. Bret was leaving the WWF for WCW. Vince McMahon did not want Bret to leave the company while still holding the WWF Championship, and Bret reportedly did not want to lose the title to Shawn Michaels, and also to Shawn Michaels in Canada, especially because Bret and Shawn had serious real-life tension. The agreed-upon finish was supposedly not supposed to be Shawn simply beating Bret cleanly, but during the match, Shawn put Bret in Bret's own finishing hold, the sharpshooter. Vince McMahon was at ringside. Referee Earl Hebner called for the bell even though Bret had not submitted. Shawn Michaels was declared the winner in the new WWF Championship. Bret immediately realized something was wrong. He spit in the face of Vince McMahon, smashed equipment, and later reportedly punched Vince McMahon backstage. The incident became one of the most infamous moments in pro wrestling history. Now, the conspiracy theory that says, what if Bret was in on it the whole time? What if the whole thing was secretly planned as the ultimate worked shoot? In other words, what if the Montreal Screwjob was not a real betrayal, but a brilliant piece of wrestling theater designed to blur the line between reality and fiction? Now, something to understand here of why this theory exists. You have to understand the timing. In 1997, WWE was losing the Monday Night War to WCW. WCW had Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Sting, Ric Flair, Goldberg, the NWO. WWF was trying to evolve from the cartoonish new generation era into something edgier, the Attitude Era, as we come to know it. And Bret Hart was one of WWF's most respected stars. He was also a hero in Canada. Shawn Michaels was the cocky, controversial leader of DX, and Bret represented tradition. Hello from Ireland. Love it. Wrestling honor and old school values. Shawn represented the new attitude, rebellious, disrespectful, and controversial. Now, behind the scenes, Vince McMahon had signed Bret to a long-term contract, but later told Bret the company could not afford it and gave him permission to negotiate with WCW, and Bret accepted a major high-paying WCW offer. That created a big problem, however, because Bret was still WWF champion, but he was leaving for the competition, and Vince feared a repeat of the Alundra Blaze situation where a WWF title belt appeared on WCW television and was thrown in the trash. Bret has always said he would never have done that, but Vince apparently didn't want to take that risk. So the official version is that Vince decided to take the title off Bret in Montreal, whether Bret agreed to it or not. So here's why some fans believe it was a work. It was almost too perfect for WWF's future because it helped create the Mr. McMahon character. All right, before this, the casual fans thought of Vince as a commentator. And then after this, it was publicly understood that he was the boss. And the angry reaction of Montreal allowed Vince to become the evil authority figure, the billionaire boss who abuses his power. And so people say, isn't it convenient that the supposed disaster created exactly the villain WWF needed? Number 2, wrestling is built on deception. That kind of speaks for itself. So the argument is, of course, they would tell us it's real. That's what makes the work work. Number 3, Bret became sympathetic. Shawn became hated. And Vince became the ultimate villain. It worked out just a little bit too well for everyone. And then, of course, the documentary that came out, the timing felt very suspicious. The documentary Wrestling with Shadows was filming Bret around this period because cameras captured so much of the tension. A lot of people wonder whether the entire situation was being shaped into a bigger real-life drama. And then lastly, Bret eventually returns to WWE, as most guys do. And he returned to WWE programming, reconciled publicly with Shawn Michaels, entered the Hall of Fame, and even worked a storyline with Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 26. And some fans use that reconciliation as evidence that the bitterness was exaggerated. The counter to that, of course, is simple. Time passed, money was made, and people do move on. But now the reasons why it's not true before we get to our special guest, and I read all you guys in the live chat. Yes, Adam, I do remember that you said you loved me. Thank you very much. Much love to you. Bret Hart has consistently denied being in on it. And very angrily and with a lot of emotion, he says, I had nothing to do with it. Number 2, Bret's WCW run did not benefit from it in the way that it should have. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it still wasn't a work or whatever, but if the Montreal Screwjob was designed to make Bret a bigger star, WCW failed greatly to capitalize on it. He came in with all this momentum, but WCW never used him as effectively as they could have. Number 3, too many people would have had to keep the secret. A true secret work involving Bret, Vince, Shawn, Earl Hebner, and possibly others would require a lot of people to maintain the lie for decades. And in this day and age, when everyone's doing shoot interviews, it's very hard to believe that nobody would have come out and shot on the fact that it was a work. Number 4, a backstage fallout that happened looked too real. Bret reportedly confronted Vince. He punched Vince. Vince ends up with a black eye. We see him stumbling out of the locker room area. This is a lot of real-life pain for something supposedly designed as a storyline. And then, of course, you had all the relationships that were damaged from this between Vince, the WWE, the Hart family, which was made even worse with Owen Hart's passing. And lastly, Shawn Michaels later admitted knowledge of the plan. So for years, Shawn was told you need to deny, which he did. But then he later admitted he did know. And to many fans, that actually supports the actual official version of the events. Shawn, Vince, and a small group knew, but Bret did not. So there is all of the information. So now the question is, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you believe Bret Hart was truly blindsided, or did he know what was going on? Was Vince McMahon justified in protecting the WWF Championship? Would Bret Hart really have taken the WWF title to WCW? Did the Montreal Screwjob accidentally create the Attitude Era? Or is this the greatest real-life wrestling controversy of all time? I'm going to start with Benny the Jet Scala. Benny, take it away. Give me your thoughts, your beliefs, and your conclusion on this epic conspiracy theory.
Well, Bret Hart is one of my, he's in my Mount Rushmore of favorite wrestlers. And I mean, I've read his book cover to cover. I'm listening to it now on Audible, his audiobook. Bret Hart, over all these years, it has been to me the most consistent. And, remember, like you said, we're talking about a business that is, where it's rife with liars. And Bret has been amazingly consistent all these years. I believe that he was legitimately screwed. I believe that he went into Montreal and negotiated with Vince in good faith and tried to work something out, and I think the last thing they had left it was going to be some kind of schmoz, and where, it was going to be a DQ or something like double DQ, whatever it was going to be, count out.
Right. And
that the next night, I believe it was in Detroit, that he was going to forfeit the belt. So I have a couple of, absolutely, I think Bret had no idea that he was going to be blindsided like that. Now, on the flip side, though, well, let me backtrack. Bret had, I believe, at that time, 14 years in the company. I believe the longest running employee, the most loyal employee. Yeah, he didn't want to leave. The only reason why he would, this would have even happened was because Vince could not honor the contract that Bret signed.
Right.
I mean, if Vince simply honored the contract, this would not have happened. So, he told Bret he was welcome to go get a different offer. And, Bret's the world champion. You got to strike while the iron is hot. So he negotiated with WCW. Now, I do believe, though, I do fault Bret for not properly doing business. I think he should have just dropped the title to Shawn Michaels in Montreal. That's what you do. I mean, he said, I don't want to lose in Canada. I mean, can Stone Cold use that? Or The Rock? I don't want to lose in the United States. Well, that eliminates like 98% of the venues. So I don't think you get to choose the way you go out. I know that Bret did have limited creative control in his contract for the last 30 days, where he could choose it. But, I think he should have taken the high road. I absolutely don't think he would have left with the title. He would not have done a Medusa / Alundra Blaze and brought the title with him. And I really think Vince knew that. I sometimes wonder, why did Vince is a smart guy. Vince knew exactly what Bret was and what he stood for. In my wildest dreams, I can't imagine that Vince would have thought Bret, would have done that. I do believe that Vince in his mind thought, well, I'm going to screw him over and create this sensational angle. It's going to make me the biggest a-hole in the history of wrestling, and that absolutely did turn out that way. But I don't think Bret was in on that at all. I really don't. And shame on WCW for not, picking the ball up with Bret Hart and running with it. His WCW run. And I mean, I was very excited to see Bret Hart come into WCW. Really, thought he was going to replicate what he did in WWF, and he absolutely fell flat. And I don't think it was his fault either. I think it was the way he was booked. So, no, I think Bret could have done business a little bit differently. I think Vince could have definitely done business a little bit differently, but by him not doing business differently, he created, the greatest, in my mind, the greatest heel of all time. And WWF / WWE reaped infinite benefits from the Montreal Screwjob.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. We've got Benny's thoughts, and they're very well put, by the way, very well articulated. Thank there. You. And so let's move on to George Fenmore. George, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on all of this? Reading back all the information that I had there, how does that make you feel? What does it make you think of? And what are your final conclusions as well?
Well, like Benny said, like he was supposed to drop the belt, the net, because this was filmed back then. All the pay-per-views were done on a Sunday, so Raw they did have Raw the next day. He was supposed to go drop it. Now, um, but that wasn't how originally how they wanted it to go either. They wanted him just to legitimately clean lose to Shawn, and Bret refused. So you had Vince out there ringing the bell, and just pretend like he didn't know what everyone else pretend like they didn't know what was going on. Um, I watched that live. Granted, I was still a kid at the time, but I watched that live, and you could tell on the looks of like Bret's face, he was like shook. He was like, "What just happened?" Or Hebner ran out of there. Uh, Sean played it off. And then you see the stuff from backstage where, they get into a heated argument, and there's Vince gets decked, and actually I think the decking happened in the ring. If maybe it was backstage, I don't remember. It's all kind of going together, but I think it was after they went off the air. I know he got spit in his face and all this other stuff. Um, it there's too like again to everyone's point. It's it, this happened what 96,
97.
97? Yeah,
97.
yeah. So this was almost 30 years ago, I guess. Is
Yep.
it getting that point now?
Yeah.
Am I that old? So at this point, I think it would have come out if it was a work at this point. Because
Right.
a lot of stuff that happens that was supposed to be kept hush, 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 hush over the years has come out by now, right? So, I mean, heck, we're even having our government tell us that aliens exist, which we've all known forever anyway, right? So it's now coming out. So, at some point, everything gets released. If it is a work, it is definitely the greatest work of all time. I would say I personally don't think it was a work. I personally think the Attitude Era was just a coincidence that happened off of this. It was amazing, that it happened, but it wasn't in the intention. The intention was just to get the belt off of Bret and not have, like you said, not have another Medusa Lunge Blaze thing happen. So, yeah, personally, how I felt on it as a child, I was shocked. I was like, because I didn't know all the insider stuff. I didn't know that Bret was leaving to go to WCW. That all this other stuff. I just knew all of a sudden Vince McMahon just screwed over the world champion. That's what I knew. So I was as a kid, I was shook. I was like, "What the heck just happened?" Right, and I was one of those people who only thought of Vince as a regular commentator until that. That's when I found out he was the owner and all that stuff. I didn't even know that at the time. So, um, yeah, actually it was a pretty significant part of my childhood that I didn't even realize till right now. So,
Right.
yeah, wow.
So a couple things to remember, guys. So one of the things that has fueled this rumor, that or conspiracy theory, is that that this was like the launching pad for the Attitude Era. What a lot of people tend to forget, though, is that the Attitude Era was already well on its way at this point. The Vince McMahon character was not. But you saw the build to the Attitude Era. Most people think it officially kicked off at when Austin won the title or the Screwjob, or that it started with the Austin 316 promo in 96. But whatever you think, at this point, the 316 promo was almost a year old at this. I think it was a year old at this point. And Austin was still on the rise. You had Taker was starting to become more of that demonic kind of evil character. We had Kane coming in. We had the Attitude Era was starting to get in full swing here. It just, the thing that I think put it over the top was Vince McMahon and the evil Mr. McMahon character that became the foil for Stone Cold Steve Austin. The other thing is am I the only one that noticed, as we talked about Jesse the Body doing Lizard People episodes, and while George was talking, he turned green.
Turned green?
You had some screen off to your side that changed colors a couple of times, and you went like green, blue, and
I don't have a screen here. The only thing I have is a window right there.
I swear to God, if I go back in time, I could find a shot of you turning, like on my screen, you turned like completely green for like a half a second. It was hilarious. Like, I want to get my iPad and pull it up. And like, it was like, and now that you're telling me there's no screen anywhere, like there's obviously a screen in front of you, but it's like, now that you're telling me that, I'm like,
I have my computer monitor right behind me here, yeah, but like,
it was so weird.
I have World of Warcraft on it. That's not gonna really help you much.
Am I the only one? Am I the only one that saw that like there were multiple colors flashing on him for a second? Am I going crazy? Is this conspiracy thing getting to my head?
George is a lizard person. It explains some of those DDPY poses he hits.
Right. I wondered why every time he leads in a workout, his tongue goes.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, let's keep moving then, and let's go to Doc. Doc, let's get your thoughts on this. Was it a work? Was it a shoot? What do you think?
It's all a work, brother. Let's steel man the argument that this was a work, because Benny and George have kind of gone on the other side. Now I have questions. Okay. I have questions about the Montreal Screwjob.
All right.
Number one, why were they filming this Bret Hart documentary, Wrestling with Shadows, when Bret is such a traditionalist? Wrestling with Shadows, I mean, kayfabe was already quote unquote broken with the MSG farewell with the Click, but that was only to a small degree of smarks who read the dirt sheets and in the earliest days of the internet saw that video, but the general wrestling fandom was not aware of it. There was still the illusion of kayfabe that Vince McMahon, as we've said, was just a commentator. So it seems very suspicious that this movie is filming at this time with really unprecedented access to backstage at the time. The phone calls between Bret and Vince, being backstage while this is going on. They pretty much caught everything except for the punch in the locker room, the quote unquote punch in the locker room. Kind of wild that they didn't want that in the movie, that Vince ordered the cameras out for that little bit. That's the only bit that he didn't want folks to see. So yeah, there's questions. Vince McMahon at the time is losing in the ratings to WCW. His personal villain is Ted Turner, this billionaire. If I'm a story writing genius like Vince McMahon is, and definitely was at the time, why not turn my own personal devil, my own personal demon, into the biggest, baddest bad guy of the company and play him myself? Vince stands to gain from the Montreal Screwjob. Bret has the opportunity to stand to gain by making more money with WCW and having a lighter workload. Sean stands to gain. Heck, even Hunter stands to gain. Everyone stood to gain from this being a work. If WCW drops the ball, that's not on Vince. That's not on his plan. That's not on the work. That's on WCW.
Right.
So this has a high likelihood of being a work. And I think it was Eric Porter in the chat who says, the more I dig into the Montreal Screwjob, the more I'm convinced it's a work. WCW is gaining ground with these more quote unquote grounded wrestling stories, with the NWO kind of exposing the business a little bit and acting like gang members, like we would see during the 90s with these kind of thug tactics. So it's highly plausible that Vince sees an opportunity to tell a quote unquote real world story and get ratings for WWF at the time, get a little bit more eyes on the product, get a lot more eyes on the product by screwing over the top guy in the business. There's a lot of questions that could lead this to being a work. Now, again, we've had 30 years to kind of dwell on this. I think people are still making money off the Montreal Screwjob. Bret still makes money being bitter Bret Hart. People want him to come to conventions, come on podcasts, and be upset about the Montreal Screwjob. Sean still gets a little bit of sympathy now as this redeemed Christian, and going, okay, yeah, I was in on it. I was the bad guy, but now I've turned my life around. I've had this this reformation of my character, of my person. So yeah, I'm gonna come clean and say I was in on it. People still stand to gain from it. So the axiom, it's all a work, brother. It fits. It holds.
Right. And so here's the thing. So one of the things I want you guys to be careful of in the live chat here is speaking in absolutes, like you know the exact truth. So unless you're Bret, Vince, Sean, any of those people. So like, Grandmaster, I love you, but like you're saying Bret agreed to lose the title in a four-way match in New York City at Madison Square Garden to Shawn on November 15th, 1997, not the night after on Raw, because Raw was in Ottawa. So there's a lot of different things that have come out since then. Bret basically to this day says that he was supposed to relinquish the title the next night on Raw. He wasn't going to lose it. He was going to relinquish it. That's from Bret. All right. And yes, Bret had already signed with WCW before Survivor Series. That was why the match was happening at Survivor Series and why Vince wanted Bret to drop the title. Right? He's going away. If Bret was going to drop the title to Shawn in a perfect world, you'd think Vince would wait for WrestleMania. Or Bret could have been the guy to drop it to Stone Cold, because we know how great a match they could have had. So there's a lot of different ways that things could have gone down. I don't necessarily think that Bret, I don't remember a fatal four-way being the agreed upon ending that they had talked about. But I mean, because it sounds like that would have been before Survivor Series, that he would have agreed to drop it before then. But the question is, who would he have dropped it to? So I'm not sure. But anyway, the other thing is, and it just always kind of gets to me when people are like, this is an absolute, like, when nothing has ever been completely verified, and it's pro wrestling. How can you be absolute about anything in pro wrestling? It's why I've had my disagreements with a lot of guys on the show and the live chat, because it's like they come in and they go, this is what happened. And I'm like, according to who? Because you got one guy saying this, one guy saying that, one guy doing here. Which one's kayfabe? Which one's shooting? So who are you supposed to believe in pro wrestling? That's kind of why conspiracy theories take off the way that they do. So Just be careful of that. When you think you have all the answers, that's when Roddy Piper changes all the questions. So, but really quick here, guys. So George was wondering, he had a weird look on his face when I said he turned green. And my wife went back and looked and was able to verify that, yes, it did. Now, I tried to grab a screenshot of it, and this was the best that I could do. So I don't know if you can see kind of, but his face, that's like the tail end of it. His face does turn green. Like it flashes from somewhere. Like it goes pop, 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 pop. It was really weird. But this is the best proof that I have, because that is not your natural color there, George.
No, it's probably from my monitor back here, and it probably was because I was launching World of Warcraft. If the dailies had reset, but they had not.
I just thought it was funny. We're doing a conspiracy theory show. We just mentioned lizard people, and George turns green. I just thought it was funny. Like, I was hoping it'd be like light reflecting off my hat, turning my face green. But nope, George beat me to it. So, all right, guys, let's move on to our next segment of the show, which is the ever popular, probably the most popular controversial conspiracy theory when I was growing up, which was that there were multiple Ultimate Warriors. And the theory says that the Ultimate Warrior fans saw in the late 1980s was not always the same Ultimate Warrior that they saw later. That some versions of this theory claim that the Ultimate Warrior died. Others say he was fired and secretly replaced. Some fans claim there were two warriors. Others go even further and say there were several, that Kerry Von Erich at one point played the Ultimate Warrior. The most common version focuses on Warrior's 1992 return to WWF. It was a WrestleMania 8. Hulk Hogan was attacked after his match by Sid Justice and Papa Shango, and suddenly the Ultimate Warrior returned after being gone from WWF. He sprinted to the ring, saved Hogan, and the crowd went wild. But many fans noticed that the Warrior looked drastically different. His hair seemed different. It was shorter. His body was smaller. His face paint was slightly different. His energy felt slightly different. And that led to the classic playground rumor that that's not the real Ultimate Warrior. And here's the background. The Ultimate Warrior's real name is James Bryan Hellwig. And he became one of WWF's biggest stars in the late 80s, early 90s, and he had an unforgettable entrance, sprinting to the ring, shaking the ropes, the face paint, the tassels, the weird, wild, crazy promos, and explosive energy. And his biggest career moment came at WrestleMania 6 in 1990 when he defeated Hulk Hogan in the main event to win the WWF Championship. But Warrior's WWF career had a lot of starts and stops. He left or was removed from WWF more than once because of disputes with management, money, drug testing, and other issues. And he returned in 1992, left again, returned briefly in 1996, left again or was fired, and then later appeared in WCW in 1998. Because his appearances were inconsistent and his look changed over time, the rumors grew. Now, some people believe this because Warrior looked different, right? Just plain and simple. He went from being a bodybuilder-looking dude to a not quite so bodybuilder-looking dude. What a lot of people, again, with this theory tend to forget was that Warrior then started putting more muscle on, which led to him leaving later because they were drug testing at the time, and he got caught. When Warrior returned at WrestleMania 8, he wasn't exactly the same as he had been. His physique was smaller. His hair was shorter. Everything looked different. I think his hair was even a little bit darker at the time. And so when a wrestler disappears and comes back looking a little different, especially children, which WWF was aimed at, they immediately think that's not the guy. It's not the same person. The Warrior was also larger than life. He didn't feel like a normal person, which he wasn't. He was billed from parts unknown. His promo sounded like comic book prophecies. He talked about warriors, spaceships, gods, destinies, skulls, and the power of the universe. Because the character already felt mythical, fans were more willing to believe something strange about that character. And if rumor had started that there were 2 IRS characters or 2 Tito Santanas, it probably would have been long forgotten. But 2 Ultimate Warriors? Somehow that sounded possible to a generation of fans. Number 3, wrestlers had used replacement characters before. Fans have seen fake versions of wrestlers, masked gimmicks, imposter angles, wrestlers taking over roles. Later on, WWF would use fake Undertaker, fake Diesel, fake Razor Ramon. This isn't something that's never been done before or done since. So even though Warrior was not replaced, the wrestling business itself made the rumor feel possible. His absence was mysterious to a lot of fans. We didn't have access to the internet in 1990, 91, 92, 93. We didn't know why wrestlers were leaving. And dirt sheets aren't reliable. So the casual fan especially doesn't understand, why was Warrior gone for months? Why was Warrior gone for years? So when Warrior vanished, people didn't just know the contract details or backstage reports. They just knew he was gone. And then he returns and looks completely different. Then finally, his legal name change just added to the weirdness that is the Ultimate Warrior. Jim Hellwig legally changed his name to Warrior in the 90s. And that is not evidence of multiple warriors, but it added a strange layer to the legend. The man and the character became almost inseparable, which we've talked about with Ric Flair last week. For fans already inclined to believe the myth, everything around Warrior felt unusual. So Eric Porter, I saw a video recently about how the late, great Kerry Von Erich replaced Warrior on house shows. Him and Warrior were never on the same house show, maybe once or twice. That's another rumor, conspiracy theory that's never been proven. Kerry Von Erich, that Kerry would have been recognizable, I think, too recognizable. They had similar bodies, but did not move in the same way whatsoever. Did not have the same mannerisms and so forth. And that rumor has been debunked on multiple occasions. So for me, that one doesn't hold up. The multiple one thing, where if you can get somebody that actually looks like I mean, you guys probably know where I stand on this anyway. I'm just rolling in it now. So here's why the theory might not be true. Number one, because it's Jim Hellwig. It's very Jim Hellwig. He looks like Jim Hellwig. The face, the teeth. It's always the teeth. Take a look. Number two, there's no credible evidence of a replacement. Like I said, there is no tangible evidence that Kerry Von Erich or anyone else ever stepped into the role of the Ultimate Warrior. The closest anybody ever got was the Renegade in WCW. And that wasn't even close. Like, he was supposed to be a carbon copy of the Warrior, and it was not even close. Number three, wrestlers' looks change all the time. A wrestler's look can change whether it's losing muscle, gaining muscle, hair, age, tans, lean. Like, we don't have this conversation about whether Crow Sting is the same Sting as the Surfer Sting, do we? And yet the Warrior legend lives on, right? Number four, his in-ring style remained very recognizable. It's kind of like John Cena, if you think about it. Nobody could step in and replace John Cena because it takes a lot to recreate the way he does what he does. You could say the same for Undertaker and Kane. Even though they both had a very similar moveset, Kane's looked drastically different. And when Taker wore Kane's outfit, I always knew, because I knew how Taker moved. And number five, the rumor mostly back in the day, and has now turned into adults, was spread mostly by children. The theory became famous because of schoolyard wrestling talk. People my age who were in on the playground going, that was not the same guy. That was a different. We would have arguments about this stuff when I was in school. We had famous arguments about whether Bill Murray cussed in Ghostbusters, because if you saw it in theaters, he did. If you saw it on television, he didn't. So it was a big debate. Did Bill Murray cuss in Ghostbusters? Was the Ultimate Warrior a different guy? You'd have heated debates on this stuff when we were kids. All right, so now it's time to turn it over to our panel of experts. So, did you guys ever hear the Two Ultimate rumor? Did you, when he returned in 1992, did he look different enough to make the rumor believable to you? Is the greatest wrestling schoolyard myth ever this myth, this conspiracy theory? What other wrestlers look so different after returning the fans could have believed that they were replaced? Like I said, I mentioned Sting. Do you have any other examples where this could have happened but didn't? So I'm going to start with Benny this time. Benny, give me your – or we started with Benny last time. So, George, I want to start with you this time. Try to stay the same shade, the same color this time, and give me your thoughts on this Ultimate Warrior conspiracy theory.
So, as a child, I heard all about how, like, the Warrior had died and he got replaced by somebody else. Like, that was famous on, just like you said, on the school ground for us. And you're absolutely right. There were heated debates over all this. You know, like, same thing for the Ghostbusters. It was heated debates. Personally, I always thought it was the same person. And I still do. You know, I'm old enough now where I can go back and look and watch some of that older stuff. And if you go look, it's the same guy, right? So I think it has a lot to do with, like, what you said. It was a lot of children, you know, he changed his physique, changed his, you know, hair height, you know, he got a haircut, colors, changed the color. You know, back then as a kid, we didn't realize about hair dye. You know, at that point, you know, there was no internet.
Right.
There was all kinds of stuff. So kids just make up stuff and it just spreads like hot, wildfire. So, for me, you know, I think it's always been the same person. As far as your question about other people who have done stuff in the past, yeah, you know, like you said, there's Sting, there's like you said, Diesel and Razor, and there's so many, and I'm just drawing a blank right now.
There's a very famous one that the chat brought up, but I'm going to hold off on saying it until we get to Benny and Doc in case someone mentions it.
So now I'm reading chat.
Now he's reading the chat. It would be from our buddy Eric Porter. Since everybody's reading the chat now, he's talking about Doink.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one, too. Yeah.
Multiple Doinks, which is a little bit easier to do because all you got to do is find a guy that's kind of chubby and then you cover him up with clown makeup.
I think at one point there was just a mask of it, too, wasn't there? I know clown makeup.
I don't recall a mask. I like Dink, though.
God, I miss Dink. Oh, God, do you remember, this is off topic completely, but do you remember the Survivor Series where he fought Jerry the King Lawler and we had, like, all the midget clowns and all the midget Jerry the King Lawler?
Oh, yeah.
Wrestling, right? As far, again, but to back on topic, me personally, I think it's always been the same person. But I had heard the stuff about him dying, about how he was replaced, that it was a different guy. But if you go back and watch it as an adult, it's the same person. Just, you know, things have, you know, he's changed, you know, got a haircut, right? Lost muscle mass, you know. So.
All right, Doc, it's your turn. Take it away.
Well, I got to take credit for starting this rumor.
I was going to say.
I was watching WrestleMania 8. Ultimate Warrior comes running down the ramp, and I'm like, dude, that's not Ultimate Warrior. That dude is skinny. My brother and I were sitting there. What happened to the real Ultimate Warrior? he must have died, and they had to get someone new because even then we could tell pretty much that the original Ultimate Warrior was jacked up on some foreign substances, as it were, with those promos. Yeah, I started that rumor. I also started the rumor that Marilyn Manson was really Paul from the Wonder Years, the kid Paul from the Wonder Years.
Oh, good one.
I gotta come clean with those playground rumors. Crazy how that rumor spread without the benefit of the internet. Every playground, and I mean every playground, was talking about this, was talking about how the Ultimate Warrior died and was replaced. Now, of course, for that to be true, you would have had so many people have to keep mum on this, including Sting, who did not work for the WWF until that last WrestleMania he showed up at, way after the Monday Night Wars down in San Francisco. So yeah, obviously not true. Jim Hellwig, one of a kind. The simplest explanation is the dude was off the juice. He was off the juice,
right.
And that explains why the energy was a little different. Maybe he was off the China White too. I don't know. But yeah, definitely. We said don't say definite, but this one I can say definitely not true.
Well, it's really funny. Like when you talk about the energy being off and different, the only thing I always try to remember. So he hadn't been in the ring, who knows, and obviously not training as intensely as he was. This is a guy that sprinted in a stadium from the backstage all the way to the ring. I would not be surprised if he had zero energy by the time he got there.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug, man.
There you go. James Weston made a comment here, and I want to say, so I remember going back when the WWE Network came out. And I got the opportunity to go back and watch old Nitros that I'd never seen before. And from what I remember, the NWO didn't create the rumor that the Giant was Andre's son. That had already been well established.
That was before.
Yeah.
That was before the NWO.
When he first appeared, they were already hinting at the fact that this was Andre's son. Or I should say, not the fact, but they were hinting that it was Andre's son. He did something with like an Andre merch or something like that, and
it was he was at the beach when he showed. Hogan was at the beach when
right.
Big Show showed up at the Giant at the time, and he threw a shirt at him. And, Hogan's like, that's Andre's shirt. That's Andre's shirt. It was like a dress shirt or something. He's just like, oh my god.
Right, there you go. That's what it was. Yeah, and so they were. I don't think they ever came out and. I mean, they might have said some stuff later, but I don't remember them actually saying that he was. Yeah. I think they just hinted at it.
Even Big Show has come out and talked about it. Like he was stuck with that forever after that.
Yeah.
He was little like not wanting to do it in the first place. But yeah, the whole gimmick of the Giant character was that he was Andre's son. That was the gimmick.
Right. I could see Scott Hall mentioning it. Yeah. Scott Hall, like I just said, I saw Scott Hall say it. I swear to you, Scott Hall, you can't tell him not to say something, because he'll go out and do it anyway. So if someone might have told him beforehand, hey Scott, just do me a favor, just don't say that he's Andre's kid, and Scott would be like, all right, yeah, whatever, and then just go do it.
But this was well before the NWO. Like this is like Dungeon of Doom era, right? So this was way before.
This was Thunder in Paradise, baby.
Yeah.
And my favorite was when the Giant got like murdered. He got thrown off the building and then just magically appears in the arena later. Like WCW was that for as crazy as it was fun to watch, to go back and watch that stuff. I got such a kick out of it. And Hogan's reactions were classic. All right, Benny, let's close out the Ultimate Warrior with you, buddy.
Well, first of all, we are, as a people, we're in love with conspiracies. Go all the way back, not wrestling even, to like the early 70s music. Everybody, well, not everybody, but half the people were convinced that Paul McCartney was dead.
Oh,
and it was an imposter. So, this isn't anything new, but there's really no untold secrets in professional wrestling. We know who back in my day, we had the executioners. And all of a sudden, there was a third executioner who was pretty obvious. It was Nikolai Volkov. And if we didn't surmise it then, over time we did. We know every iteration of Doink, who they were. We know that, the one time there, that fake Sting was a guy named Jeff Farmer.
Right.
So is this going to be the one exception where, that we were hoodwinked? I don't think so. And if anybody thinks it was Kerry Von Erich, I would like them to, if you can give out my contact information, please contact me, because I have some prime swampland here in Florida to sell to you. Kerry Von Erich, he had something, I don't know if you remember, it was called a prosthetic foot.
Yep. You
think Kerry Von Erich is going to sprint to the ring? Absolutely not. It ain't happening. And the only other person who it could conceivably have been would be Lex Luger. And I think Luger had a different body type than Warrior. And I don't see, Luger running up to the ring either. I think Doc had said it. You're just off the juice for a while.
Right.
You don't maintain that mass once you cycle off of steroids. Maybe I believe his hair was naturally darker. You let your hair grow out, or you cut it, and you let. He might have been dyeing it at the time he was jacked up.
Right.
No, it's, and he definitely didn't die. We know when he died, because we saw him on TV accepting his induction to the Hall of Fame, and tragically he was dead a day later.
Yeah.
No, there was, and like you said, the teeth. There was only one Jim Hellwig, aka Warrior. Yeah. And to me, that is the biggest no-brainer in the history of conspiracies.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I just remember as a kid how, and like I said, the rumor was basically spread by younger people. I think most adults could figure it out, but as a kid, it was a heated debate, but yeah, there's nobody, I believe, that can duplicate what Jim Hellwig did as the Ultimate Warrior. He was very unique, very different. Daniel Mooson, our Irish resident here, says AEW should buy TNA and WCW. I don't think either one is going to happen, considering WCW is owned by WWE, and they're not going to let that go. There's no way in hell, as Vince's theme song, there's no chance in hell that that's ever going to happen. I think if TNA does get swallowed up by anybody, it'll be WWE. They already have a kind of a working relationship with NXT, but yeah, I don't see that happening. AEW needs to focus on itself and not purchasing any other company or anything like that. I think they already did ROH, Ring of Honor, I believe, and stuff. So yeah, just work on building your brand. Anytime I think you need to go out and buy another company to build your brand, it doesn't say anything really all that positive about your brand. That's my opinion, because I work in the security industry and I've seen my company go out and buy business after business after business. To me, that doesn't speak of confidence in your ability to run a successful business. It means that, I have enough money to buy this guy so that I can get his employees and his clients, because I can't get them on my own. So I always say just build from within, buddy. Ernie Hudson said, SH word in Ghostbusters, but Bill Murray did. No, Bill Murray said, we came, we saw, we kicked its ass. I have to be direct on this quote here. So when they're in the hotel, they catch Slimer. That is the quote, that is the line that Bill Murray says as he walks out of the ballroom. If you watched it on TV, he doesn't say that, because when we were growing up, they censored movies and they would dub them. And so he would be like, we came, we saw, we kicked its butt. Right? That's what they did back in the day. Nowadays, they would bleep it, or they would cut it, or something like that. Or they would, I mean, it's ass. Everybody says that on television. But back in the 80s, when I was growing up, that was a no-no word. You did not say that at all.
Smokey and the Bandit is a classic example.
Yeah.
So many of Jackie Gleason's lines were bleeped out on TV.
Yep. The dubbing, though, was the best. The dubbing was so bad. And it's like,
it was so bad it was good.
Yeah. Like, I missed that. It was like watching a Godzilla movie. Right? Like, if I'm watching a Godzilla movie that's made in Japan, it better be dubbed. I want to read subtitles. I want it dubbed, because that is the charm of it as a U.S. Godzilla fan. So, all right. Let's keep moving here. We are now entering the second hour of the show, which means we got 2 more segments for you, 2 more conspiracy theories to cover. And so we're going to go right into another Vince McMahon conspiracy theory that has actually gained traction over the years. And to this day, it was a big part of the Who Killed WCW documentary series. And there are still people within the pro wrestling industry who worked for WCW at that time, who are convinced that Vince McMahon sent Vince Russo to destroy WCW from within. And the theory basically says that the conspiracy theory claims that Vince secretly sent Russo as a WCW creative double agent, and his mission was get hired by WCW, take over the writing, make the product suck, and then help WWF win the Monday Night War. That is true. Hogan wasn't at Mania 10. I'm trying to think of why. Oh, because of a previous comment. So in other words, the theory says Vince Russo was not just bad for WCW by accident. It was all done on purpose. Now, let's remember, Vince Russo was one of WWF's key creative voices that helped create and boost the Attitude Era. He was associated with the fast-paced, controversial, shock-heavy style often called Crash TV. That style included swerves, edgy promos, backstage segments, soap opera drama, title changes, comedy, sexuality, work shoots, and constant surprises. It was chaotic. During the late 1990s, WWF was on fire. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, DX, Mankind, The Undertaker, Kane, the Mr. McMahon character were driving huge ratings for pro wrestling. They had overtaken WCW in the ratings. Russo became associated with that creative boom. WCW was in trouble. And in 1999, Ed Ferrara and Vince Russo left WWF and joined WCW. Now, the NWO storyline had cooled down. The roster was expansive. Many of the top stars had creative control. Management was unstable. There were corporate issues with Turner Broadcasting and later AOL, Time Warner. Nitro's ratings were declining, and WWF had taken back full momentum. Russo entered WCW with the reputation of being one of the creative minds behind WWF's comeback, but his WCW run became extremely controversial. His booking including constant swerves, the same kind of work shoot promos, insider references, controversial title changes, confusing storylines, authority figures, and attempts to recreate Attitude Era chaos on a network that wouldn't allow it. Some fans loved the unpredictability. Many fans felt it made WCW look desperate, incoherent, and unserious. Eventually, WCW collapsed and was purchased by WWF in 2001. That collapse gave the conspiracy theory all the oxygen it needed. And they believe it because Russo's WWF work and WCW work seemed completely different in results, which people have attributed to He had freedom to do what he wanted in WCW, whereas in WWE, he had to report to Vince McMahon. Number 2, WCW made decisions that seemed like they were self-sabotaging themselves. WCW often leaned into insider material that casual fans may not have understood during Russo's time. Storylines sometimes revolved around backstage, politics, fake shoots, sudden turns, and authority figures. Fans who hated the product saw it as so damaging that they wondered whether anyone could truly think it was good. And when a company's creative decisions look that bad, conspiracy theories naturally appear. Number 3, WWF benefited from WCW's collapse. So the biggest winner here was Vince McMahon. So when you ask the simple question of who benefited from WCW's demise, it was the person that potentially may have sent the insider to destroy it. Number 4, Russo was close to WWF's creative system. Russo came directly from WWF. Fans imagine a spy movie scenario where he leaves one company but remains secretly loyal to Vince McMahon. It sounds like something wrestling itself would book, right? And finally, the Monday Night War felt like real warfare because it felt like they were really going to war every Monday. It's not far-fetched to think that the leader of the opposing faction would send in a spy to try and destroy from within. But, of course, we have to hit the opposite side of the coin. Why is the theory probably not true? First, WCW had major problems before Russo arrived. It's the biggest debunking point. WCW was already declining before Russo got there. The company had expensive contracts, aging stars, internal politics, declining ratings, management instability, and corporate problems. Russo may have made things worse, but he didn't create all the problems that were there when he arrived, obviously. Number 2, Russo's style needed Vince McMahon as a filter, like we discussed. The one common explanation is Russo had all these wild ideas in WWF, but Vince McMahon was there to filter. Russo brought chaos, but Vince was able to help shape it into a more coherent product. And over in WCW, Russo had the ability to do whatever he wanted. Hence, Viagra on a pole matches. Judy Bagwell on a forklift match, right? There's so many issues that we could spend all day talking about. Number 3, WCW's corporate structure was absolutely a mess and didn't want WCW. The only guy in Turner Broadcasting that wanted it was Turner. Everybody else was always trying to figure out how to get rid of it. So to blame all of that on Russo is a little bit much. I think that once Ted lost his stake in everything, that it was only a matter of time before WCW was shown the door. And Russo also damaged his own reputation by doing this. This wasn't something where he then went back to WWE to celebrate the victory. Vince was looked at as a failure everywhere. He was destroyed as much as WCW was. You know, there are companies that will not do business with him. And to this day, many fans blame him for WCW's collapse. And he's never come out and said, but Vince sent me there. So if he's not coming out trying to defend himself by saying, look, Vince sent me to do a job, I did the job, then it's tough to take seriously. And finally, there's no hard evidence. The theory is entertaining, but there's no solid proof that Vince McMahon secretly sent Russo to WCW as a mole. The simpler explanation is that WCW hired someone they believed could create WWF success, recreate it. But the combination of Russo's style, WCW's politics, the corporate dysfunction, and declining audience interest just made everything worse. So as we turn things over to our special guests here, do you think Russo gets too much blame for WCW dying? Could anyone have saved WCW by that point? Was Russo's WWF success mostly because of Vince? What was worse for WCW? Russo's booking, backstage politics, or corporate management? And if Russo had never gone to WCW, does WCW survive longer? I think those are all very important questions because, like I said, Turner didn't want WCW. The writing was on the wall. The less Ted Turner had control over his own company. So, all right, let's jump into our special guest here, Doc, the one and only, the outspoken, the Diamond Standard, Doc Haywood. Take it away, my friend.
Well, it's like a chess match. You can maneuver your opponent into making some very bad decisions. And I think that's what Vince did here. He saw that WCW was falling victim to its own corporate structure and to out-of-control egos backstage. You let loose another out-of-control ego that's very creative. Let's give Russo his credit. Very creative guy. Came up with some wild ideas. But as we said, he needed Vince to kind of rein those things in. You let him loose in a calculated, quote-unquote, loss. Like if in chess, you let the opponent take what they may see as a powerful piece just so you can move them into check. And I think that's what happened here. Allow this, cut this ego loose. He's going to go and try and make money with the other, really the only other name in town.
Right.
And he's going to do what he does. Be out of control, throw wild ideas out there. And he was given way too long of a leash, which he used to hang himself in the company.
Right.
And the same thing with those out of control egos backstage. Hogan contributed to it. Bischoff contributed to it. All these guys backstage contributed to the fall of WCW. I don't think Vince Russo was loyal to Vince McMahon. I think he was loyal to his own pocketbook. He was loyal to money and loyal to his own ego. Now, I don't follow JCW, so I don't know how great the stories he's doing over there are. Maybe he's redeeming himself in that factor, but I doubt it because we're not talking about JCW on this show.
Right.
So I just think that this was just kind of WCW making bad decisions over bad decisions over bad decisions.
Right. I do want to mention something that came up in the comments. So James Weston's, let me just clarify what your comment and then the reactions to it. He said, I'll never forget my friend got WrestleMania 10, and the Monday after, everyone was asking who won between Yokozuna, Lex Luger, and Bret Hart. They couldn't believe when we told him Hulk Hogan. So here's it. You're actually mixing up two WrestleManias. So the full answer to your little thing there is WrestleMania 9 was Bret Hart versus Yokozuna. Lex Luger was still doing his narcissist gimmick. And Bret lost to Yoko, and then Hogan jumped in and won the title. WrestleMania 10 had two world title matches, Lex Luger and Yoko first, which did not go well for Lex, and then Lex versus Bret as the main event, which Bret wins, becomes the WWF champion. So there's kind of the full explanation of how that worked out. 9 was the Vegas one where Hogan challenges Yoko after defeating Bret. 10 is MSG where Bret defeats Yoko in both of their second matches because Bret had also lost to Owen in the opener in one of the greatest WrestleMania opening matches of all time. All right, let's move on to Benny Scala. Benny, tell us your thoughts about Vince and WCW. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to probably repeat a lot of what Doc just said. So Vince Russo got hired to write for the WWF magazine, I believe, in 1991. He got paid $60,000, and he did a good job of working his way through the system to the point where by 1999, he was in the creative writing team. Actually, he was the head of the creative writing team. And I believe his salary at that point was $350,000. The problem was that he was working a gazillion hours. And on top of that, the fact that now, I believe it was 99 when SmackDown was created, and he was told, now you've got to write content for SmackDown. So you're basically told that, you're already like 90-hour-a-week job. You just got added responsibilities. And Vince Russo, to his credit, has always been a devoted family man. And I believe he approached Vince and said, look, man, I'm burning myself out.
Yeah.
I need some time. And, Vince's remark, and I've heard this many, many times from more than one person, was that you make enough money, hire a nanny. But that's not what Vince wanted. Russo, he wanted to spend time with his family. So, this opportunity arose with WCW. Now, keep in mind, in '99, it's a year and a half after WWF retook the lead in the ratings. So that's like, the 83 weeks is a year and a half old at this point. WCW is circling the drain. It's a shit show. It's mismanaged. Eric Bischoff is when you work with other people's money, it's a very dangerous thing. It's like you have a checkbook, but you don't have to reconcile. You just can write checks. Doesn't matter how much money's in the account.
Right.
You can keep writing those checks, and that's exactly what he did. When you look at some of the contracts in WCW in the late '90s, a lot of guys were way, way overpaid for what they did, and the shows were disorganized. I think that they thought, here's where Vince McMahon is a genius. WCW, Eric Bischoff thought that Vince could, hotshot WCW back into prominence with his ideas. What Bischoff did not realize, which Vince McMahon did, was that, Vince Russo had a lot of brilliant ideas, but he had a lot of not so brilliant ideas. And I think Doc pretty much said this. So you figure, out of 15 ideas, maybe Vince could use one or two. And he, the other 13 or 14 made it to the cutting room floor, where in WCW, those other 13 or 14 ridiculous ideas wound up being Viagra on a pole and Judy Bagwell on a forklift, because there was nobody of McMahon's caliber to check Vince Russo. So no, I mean, I think in Vince's mind, meaning McMahon, he knew that by sending Russo over there, that was going to be like the death blow. That WCW was already circling the drain. McMahon knew that by sending Russo over to WCW, that he was going to put the kibosh, the finishing touches on WCW. So no, Vince didn't send him there, but Vince also didn't stop him from going there,
right? Because
he knew what was going to happen. He knew that Bischoff was going to just let Russo fly unchecked, and that wasn't going to work.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I want to hit up on in the chat before we get to George here. So Eric Porter made a statement here. I hope, and I want to address this real quick. I hope AEW is paying attention to the downfall of WCW, because WWE is doing very WCW-like decisions these days, and AEW needs to capitalize on it. Eric Porter then says, business is falling. Bring back the NWO. Business is falling. Bring back the Bloodline. First of all, so business is not falling, number one. WWE's ratings are actually going up from where they were. There's always that lull after WrestleMania where there's a lot of things come back down and then they go back up as we get into summer. That's a natural thing that happens. And ratings, I've said this about AEW. Ratings don't mean crap like they used to back in the day, because so much is on streaming now. And people who aren't complaining about numbers is Netflix, right? They're doing fine. They're doing well. Business is doing just fine for WWE. Now, do I think that they needed to bring back the Bloodline? Not necessarily, but I'm not complaining, because I think it's being done well. And as long as it's being done well, who cares? If the NWO were done well, we wouldn't be complaining about it now. The problem wasn't that it came back. It's that it came back and was done poorly. That WWE brought it back and tried to make it work, and it didn't work because they couldn't recapture the magic, right? The other thing is that's the only real comparison that I can see you making right now. I get that there's a lot of comic crap and stuff, but WWE's always done that. And the one thing I would say, AEW has been much more WCW-esque since its inception than WWE, because they followed the same blueprint for success, which was get as many of the established WWE guys as you can and want into your group to help establish you as being an actual threat, right? And then they give away pay-per-view, PLE, whatever you want to call it, quality matches on free television all the time. WCW, that was one of their biggest problems, is they failed to build to make the pay-per-views feel like must-have because they focus so much on Nitro. And Eric, show me an article, show me anything that can prove that ESPN is not happy with the numbers for WWE PLEs. Honestly, I'm not putting you down or anything. I'm saying show me proof, because everything I've seen says that ESPN is fine with the numbers. That ESPN is getting money. They're starting to get their money back from, because it's not going to be streaming subscriptions. We already know streaming subscriptions don't make a lot of money. That's why they all come with ads now. And we saw a lot of ads during WrestleMania because ESPN's going to try to make those big PLEs the same as the Super Bowl, the same as all these other sports that charge big money for ads. So that might be true. Maybe ESPN isn't happy with WWE's numbers, but I haven't seen any proof that says that that's true. Not one. Not one article, not one interview. No one's come out and said that. So wherever you're getting that information from sounds to me like it's more from like the dirt sheets. The same people that claim that movies are bombs before they're even released. Right? So number one, I don't really care as long as I can watch it and enjoy it. That's all that matters to me. But because of the show and because of a lot of you guys in the chat, I kind of have to stay up on as much as I can. But I don't want any company to fail. I didn't want WCW to fail back in the day. I don't want AEW to fail now. I don't want TNA to fail now. And you guys know my story. When it comes to WWE, I will always be loyal. But I'll be honest when I think that they're sucking. Right? When I think they're dropping the ball, I'll be honest about it. I don't think they're doing their best work right now, but I also don't think they're doing terrible. I'm enjoying a lot of what I'm seeing, and I'm excited for where we're going to go. All right, rant over. George, give me your thoughts on Vince Russo, Vince McMahon, the Monday Night Wars. Where do you stand on this one? Because a lot of people we got a lot of people on one side and a lot of people on the other. What do you think?
My personal take on it is it goes back to what Benny said. Like Vince Russo was looking to have more family time. At the same token, if you let him off a leash with anyone, the arena man, it's gonna go where it went. Like you said, like everyone's saying, Viana Pro, everything else, right? Like all of that stuff, right? So stuff with Hogan and him not wanting any older people anymore, which is honestly, I think was one of his not so brilliant ideas, because you want established stars to put over the next generation in order to build them up, but he was just trying to get rid of them all together, which made no sense.
Right.
That said, I don't think WCW would have gotten saved regardless. Like Vince McMahon himself could have went there and started writing for the company, and it would have been and it had nothing to do with um, anything other than that everyone at Time Warner didn't want it,
Right.
and they were going to do anything they could to get rid of it. And we saw that, I believe not. I think just recently, Tony Schiavone had come out and said and talked about how he, right after the passing of Ted Turner, that he had ran into Ted Turner and in the bath in like one of the bathroom things or whatever, and Ted was just going off about the whole situation. Like he wanted it. He still wanted WCW. If
Right.
Ted Turner had remained in control, WCW would still be here today.
I agree.
That's what it boils down to. It would, and do I think Vince Russo helped the company? No. Do I think he's the reason it died? Also, no. I think there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we now are privy to, but then we were not. And I feel that, and that's when that rumor started, right? Was back then when we all were in the know. Vince Russo like you said, he does have some good ideas, but it needs to be reined in. If somebody isn't reining him in, then it just goes off to Timbuktu and then some. And then he made himself a character on TV, which just didn't help matters. It just made it worse. So, WCW was a sinking ship, and the only thing that would have saved it would have been if Ted Turner was still in charge, and if Eric Bischoff could have bought the company and had a TV deal, he probably could have been saved. But those were the only two ways it would have happened, and otherwise it was just, being put out the pasture.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things a lot of people don't know that has been brought to light over the last few years was that Turner, if one of their things was losing money, they would literally pull it from WCW, so that all the debt and all the blame would go to WCW. And I don't know exactly how to explain it right, because I'm not that kind of a guy here. But man, the underhanded things that the Turner organization was doing to WCW was criminal. And the writing was on the wall, because even back when WCW was successful, Turner didn't appreciate the success. They would still make fun of their own product in board meetings and in public offering things. They were always putting the product down, and very few people ever stood up for it. So yeah, the writing was on the wall. Now Vince, maybe he sped up the process a little bit, but again, I don't think it would have mattered unless, like George said, unless Ted Turner or Bischoff was able to purchase the company and had the television time to do it. Because that's the only reason Bischoff's deal fell through. Is Turner said, sure, you can have all of it, but you can't have the TV time. And Bischoff said it best. He's like, well, if I can't have the TV time, then WCW's worth like $20. So, and Vince bought it for like $1 more than that. So, I mean, I'll never forget Chris Jericho saying, when I found out what Vince bought it for, he's like, I could have bought it. I could have bought WCW for what Vince paid for it. So that's crazy. Vic Venom, a.k.a. Vince Russo. Vince was the head writer for the Raw magazine. Yes, he was. They canceled the magazine because it wasn't selling, and then Vince got moved to the booking team. Well, the Raw magazine kind of then just became the WWF magazine, which that continued on for a very long time. And I had tons of issues of the WWF magazine. I also had, when I got to college, my buddy, because he's the one that really kind of got me going with Dallas and WCW, I started buying a couple of the WCW ones. They were entertaining too. The WCW magazines were really fun, because at that time, that was when Bischoff was challenging Vince to a match. I remember when I was in college, Bischoff was coming on, and somebody, I think it was Hogan, told Bischoff, he's like, don't do that, man. He'll show up. and he's going to kill you. But Vince is smart enough to know that you don't do that. If Vince had shown up, that would have been huge for WCW. People would have been tuning into that like it was nobody's business. All right, so let's move on to our last and final segment of the night, and that is probably the most controversial one. So we're going to be very careful as we tread over this one here because we want to make this very clear. This is a very sensitive conspiracy theory. We're not presenting this as fact. All right, I want to make this clear, just like we did with Ric Flair's episode last week. We're not accusing anyone of anything. There is no reliable public evidence proving this rumor. The reason it is included is because it has become one of the most infamous and persistent rumors in wrestling history. The theory is generally used to explain one major question. Why was Macho Man Randy Savage seemingly blacklisted from WWE all the way until his death? And here's the basic theory. Randy Savage left WWF in 1994 and went to WCW. Many wrestlers left WWF for WCW during that period, including Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Lex Luger, and many others. But unlike many other major stars, Savage seemed to remain unusually absent from WWE in the years that followed. We saw all those guys, except for Luger until recently, come back to the fold. He was not brought back for major nostalgia runs. He was not prominently included in the same way other legends were. And for a long time, fans considered him one of the most glaring omissions from the WWE Hall of Fame. The conspiracy theory claims that there was a deeply personal reason Vince McMahon did not want Savage back. The rumor centers on Stephanie McMahon. Different versions of the rumor exist, but the general claim is that something personal and inappropriate allegedly happened involving Savage and Stephanie, and that this caused Vince to essentially blacklist Savage from WWE. Again, this is rumor, not proven fact. And the background of this is that Randy Savage was one of the biggest stars in WWF history. He was charismatic, he was intense, colorful, athletic, completely unforgettable, and had legendary feuds and matches with Ricky Steamboat, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, The Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake Roberts, everybody. All right? And his relationship with Miss Elizabeth became one of the most famous on-screen and off-screen relationships in wrestling history. By the early 1990s, Savage was still a major name, but WWF was moving towards a younger roster. Savage wanted to keep wrestling. Vince reportedly saw him more as an announcer and special attraction than as a top full-time in-ring star. Savage left WWF in 1994 and joined WCW, where he continued wrestling during the Monday Night War era. After WCW was purchased in 2001, many WCW names eventually returned to WWE in some form. Hogan returned, Nash returned, Hall returned, Flair returned, Goldberg even eventually appeared in WWE, and even names with past issues came back. But Savage did not have a major WWE return before his death in 2011. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame posthumously in 2015, and that long absence is the mystery that fuels the conspiracy. Here's why people believe it. This is the heart of the story. In wrestling, burned bridges often get rebuilt if there is money to be made. Bret Hart came back. Bruno Sammartino eventually came back and went into the Hall of Fame. Warrior came back and reconciled with WWE. Hulk Hogan had returned multiple times despite controversy. So fans wondered, why not Savage? The longer he stayed away, the more people assumed there had been a reason bigger than just ordinary business disagreement. Vince McMahon, number 2. Vince McMahon brought back people he had major problems with. We already named him. All right? Warrior has sued Vince McMahon. Hogan had a lot of issues that they had to work past. Bruno Sammartino was very vocally against WWE's product for a long time. Same with superstar Billy Graham. All right, so fans thought if Vince can forgive or work with all these other people, what made Savage different? All right, and then number 3, the rumor explained the emotional intensity. The rumor gives fans a dramatic explanation for what otherwise might have been a complicated business relationship. If the issue was simply money, ego, creative differences, or Savage going to WCW, then fans argue WWE could have gotten over it, but the issue had to have been personal. And that would explain why Savage was treated differently. That's why the rumor to this day still sticks. All right, Savage, and number 4, Savage was rarely discussed in the way fans expected. So for years, many fans felt WWE did not celebrate Savage at the level his career deserved. Whether that perception was fully fair or not, it made fans suspicious. A star as iconic as Randy Savage being kept at arm's length created a vacuum, and conspiracy theories filled the void. The wrestling world runs on rumors. That's our 5th and final thing here. Backstage wrestling gossip has always been part of the culture. Fans hear one story from a shoot interview, another on a message board, another from a podcast or a dirt sheet writer. Nowadays, it's just hearing something on X or something like that, and all of a sudden, rumor becomes truth to them. It's why we say be very careful about what you say as fact here, because if you don't have legitimate proof to back it up, then all you've done is just repeat talking points that someone else is trying to give you to try to get engagement, to try to get clicks. Now, we want you to engage with us here on this show, but I'm not feeding you a bunch of BS to do it. I'm speaking my truth as I know it. But here's why the story's weak. Number 1, again, there is no reliable public evidence. This is the most important thing. Despite how often the rumor is repeated, no strong public evidence has ever proven it. It remains just a rumor. A responsible discussion has to make that clear. And number 2, Savage had other possible reasons for being distant from WWE. There are several of those, by the way. Savage left for WCW during a heated business war. He may have had personal pride and did not want to return under certain terms. WWE may not have offered what he wanted. Vince may have viewed him as difficult, unpredictable, or not worth the trouble at certain points. There may have also been disputes over money, licensing, imaging rights, creative control, how Savage wanted his family included in the Hall of Fame. He didn't want to go into the Hall of Fame by himself. He wanted the entire Poffo family to go with him. None of those explanations are as sensational, though, as the Stephanie rumor, but they are more plausible. Number 3, Savage's own personality may have played a role. Randy is famously intense. Many people who knew him describe him as passionate, private, and sometimes difficult. That does not mean he did anything wrong. It just means that business negotiations with him might have been on the not so easy side. Sometimes the simplest explanation is not a scandal. Sometimes it's just ego, pride, timing, money, and personality. And maybe Savage just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. Savage, before his death, he married his high school sweetheart. He was seemingly living a happy life. Maybe he just didn't want the drama that comes with going back to WWE at that time. Number 4, the WWE did eventually honor him. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. They did put out a big documentary about him. And if there had been an absolute lifetime ban, the induction complicates that theory. Supporters of the conspiracy can argue it only happened after he passed, but skeptics can say it shows the relationship was not permanently impossible. And finally, the rumor is often repeated, again, without sources. So fans know the rumor, but far fewer can explain where it came from, right? This is why we say if you're going to make a statement of fact, what's your source? Where'd you get that information from? Is the source reliable? All right. So whenever you can't provide that, it's a warning sign. A conspiracy theory becomes powerful when people say everybody knows it, but everybody knows is not proof. All right. So I want to get to our guests here before we start to round this off here. And so some questions to think about, guys, as you're answering here. Why do you think Randy Savage stayed away from WWE? Was Savage's absence truly suspicious, or do fans exaggerate? Should WWE have brought Savage back before he passed? Is this, I mean, of course, his passing was a shock. It wasn't that he was sick for a long time and WWE ignored him. It was a heart attack while driving. Is this one of those rumors wrestling fans should stop repeating, or is everything fair game to discuss as part of pro wrestling? Where do we draw the line between fun wrestling conspiracy and unfair real-life accusations? So there's a very poignant conspiracy theory, because if you look at today's society, how many conspiracy theories out there are just there to cause trouble, to be hurtful and harmful, and aren't for and to be for legitimate discussion? Because usually that's what conspiracy theories, and it's a bad word to use on every theory out there, but a lot of them are just designed to get people to talk and go, hey, what if this possibility were true? So something to think about here. Let's start with Benny. Benny, give me your thoughts on Randy Savage and the Stephanie McMahon rumor, and that was somehow related to his quote-unquote blacklisting from WWE.
I'm actually going to start off by borrowing a quote from Randy Savage, saying, I am unjustifiably in a position I'd rather not be in. And that is talking badly about Macho Man, who I love dearly. I'll say a bunch of things that are pretty much clearly established. One was that he had a lot of animosity with Vince because there was a Legends Battle Royal, I forget where it was, that he had requested
WrestleMania
that
17.
his dad, Randy Popo, who was a fantastic and legendary wrestler, Angelo Popo, I'm sorry, that he be included in that. And Vince, he turned him down. Why? I have no idea. I believe Angelo Popo was still in great shape. Angelo Popo, years before, had set the Guinness Book record. I think you know this too. For the most sit-ups. So it was like 3,600 consecutive sit-ups, an insane amount. And the man was dedicated to physical fitness. So he had some heat with Vince because of that. And I believe he had a lot of heat with Vince because I don't think he wanted to be a broadcaster, a commentator. He wanted to be in the ring. And he wasn't that old when I think he was in his just early 40s, 40, 41, when he's doing the commentating for the WWF. He proposed to Vince that he do one last program with Shawn Michaels. And he would, they'd make it like a 3-match series, whatever. But it would wind up with Savage passing the torch to Shawn Michaels. Vince turned that down. And so when his contract came up, I believe that Randy said, now just, take my ball and go elsewhere. And, Vince gave a pretty decent send-off. I remember watching it live on Monday Night Raw, where he said, Vince said, we wish him the best. And, I mean, it looked sincere. I mean, who the heck knows? But, and then Randy went into WCW, and he did very well in WCW for, a number of years. So in my opinion, one more thing I need to say before I give my opinion. Let's keep in mind, Vince McMahon once pitched an incest angle, where he was going to be the father of Stephanie's unborn child. And I think it was Stephanie who said, hell no, I'm not doing that. But, I mean, Vince thought that was going to make money. So that tells you alone the kind of character that Vince McMahon has.
Right.
I mean, who would do something like that? My opinion is, Randy wanted to keep working. Vince wasn't going to let him do it because of his age. I mean, although he was in fantastic shape, he went on to WCW, wrestled a number of years. I think it was more Randy probably that didn't want to go back because he saw what kind of a shit show WWE had become. I think it was on his end, not necessarily Vince's. And I heard Bruce Pritchard say that at one point they were in negotiations with Randy to bring him back, and it fell apart. He didn't really explain for what reason. So I don't think there's any truth whatsoever. The one thing I would say is, at some point Randy liked younger women because when he was dating Gorgeous George, I forget what her real name is, but I think at the time he was like almost 50 and she was 23.
Right.
That's the only thing that I would say that at some point he liked younger women, but by the same token, as Pat mentioned, he married his high school sweetheart. So, obviously his age, and was very happy with her.
Yeah.
So, no, absolutely not. 100% no.
And I'm glad you brought up the Angelo Poffo thing. Like, again, that was a big reason why Savage probably didn't go into the Hall of Fame earlier. Like we talked about, he wanted his family to go in. And I think if you're proud of your family, I mean, that's kind of a noble thing. But I think the truth is like if you're a WWE fan, the majority of WWE fans probably have no clue who Angelo Poffo is. Probably had no idea that Macho Man's last name was Poffo, right? Or that the Genius, even though they look very similar, Leapin' Lanny, was Savage's brother. Like, I didn't know that for a long, long time. So the idea that Savage would be like, oh, put my dad in the gimmick battle royal. First of all, Angelo Poffo's not a gimmick. Angelo Poffo's kind of like, he's kind of the real deal. He is what he says he is. He does what he says. I don't think he would have fit in the gimmick battle royal, and most fans would have sat on their hands when he was introduced. Like, who the hell's this guy? Right? And to induct the whole family in, I mean, why are we inducting the whole family in? Because they helped Savage get there? Is Lanny Poffo deserving of a Hall of Fame spot? Does Angelo get it because he set the sit-up record? So I appreciate, and I think it's a noble thing for Savage to want to uplift his family in that way. But if I can see that definitely being why neither party came to an agreement for
that could be a difference for sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously Lanny Poffo, love him as I did, he absolutely did not belong in the Hall of Fame. And Angelo, I mean, back in the day, he was a fantastic wrestler. He wrestled for years. He wrestled, I believe, as the Miser, which actually was a pretty good take on his real life persona. But WWE was not inducting guys who wrestled in the 50s in the Hall of Fame. So I appreciate Randy Savage's loyalty to his family. It's very admirable, but it wasn't realistic, I don't think.
All right, let's get to our last two here. George, what are your thoughts on this one?
So, I agree with Benny. I think Macho Man, just the reason why he never went back was he was just kind of done with it. Like he did a minor TNA run, but a lot of wrestlers did that. I think even DDP did that, right? Like, he was, like you said, kind of like over the WWF/E's BS. He just, if you notice, he basically got out of wrestling altogether there, right? Like so I feel like if he had stayed in wrestling, he probably would have ended up back there. I feel like he just moved on with life, right?
Yeah.
Like he retired, went and, like you said, fell in love with his high school sweetheart. He was happy, right? And by the way, Gorgeous George's first real name is Stephanie. I don't remember her last name, but yeah, it's funny.
George just adding flame to the fire. Obviously, Macho has a thing for Stephanie's then. I mean, isn't that the obvious conclusion that we're coming up to here? My green-faced friend?
I'm not doing. Yeah, I hope I feel bad.
George is our resident lizard man. I would, George, I would be the happiest guy on earth if we did another conspiracy show and you were on it and you painted yourself green. You would be my hero.
That's probably never gonna happen, but okay.
Get an Iguana Man mask.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that would be perfect, wouldn't it? That would be perfect.
But yeah, as far as the whole conspiracy thing goes, I think when Macho Man left, I think he told Vince he wasn't gonna go over there, and then he did, and Vince did have some personal beef with him, but I had nothing to do with Stephanie. As far as what I feel. I feel like even Stephanie would have said something about it at this point. Nothing. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like I said, it's just, and most of these conspiracy theories was started by some random person somewhere that just tried to get someone to engage with them. They wanted to get a conversation started, and then it just built steam over time.
Yeah, and another point I like to put onto this too is that I got to be careful how I word this, so because we're on air, but victims of, I'm trying to find the right word here. Victims of this type of assault, let's put it that way.
Because Stephanie would have been underage.
Exactly. So, victim of this type of assault, my wife being one, myself as well. That's something that doesn't usually get talked about that much. I was a really little kid. But it gets easier as the person who did the thing has passed away, and they usually come out after the fact because they don't feel like they're going to get, redone to them or hurt or injured or killed or whatever, right? So they feel safer when the person is no longer living on this planet. With that said, Stephanie still hasn't said a word, not a peep. So I think that in itself kills this whole thing dead, right? Like, I think it would have come out for sure after his passing.
All right. And there has been a lot that came out about, a lot of people have talked. Macho Man's A&E biography was not a very positive one overall.
But Stephanie herself would have come out by this point.
Yeah. All right, Doc.
It's been 15 years, right? Since he passed away. So.
All right, Doc, close us out here. Give us your final thoughts on Savage and this rumor and conspiracy that has gone around for some time now.
I am not a fan of this kind of rumor. It's salacious with nothing to back it up. I'm a big Macho Man fan. I'm wearing them right here. We got a Roosevelt shirt, patriotic Macho Man, dropping the elbow with the American flag. So I want to posit that Macho Man did return to WWE as a masked character who we still don't know the identity of. I'm going to say that Macho Man was the man behind the mask of Mr. America.
Oh, brilliant. A round of applause for Doc Hale. He figured it out, finally.
Months and years of digging and speculation and chasing down rumors. Randy Savage was Mr. America, brother.
It works for me. I'm good with that. So Doc, I guess we can say, like, you're just categorically against this conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
The less said, the better.
There's nothing to back it up. It's just salacious kind of, let's just out of the gutter type rumors.
Right.
Like George said, I'm sure Stephanie would have come out and said something about it had this happened. Where does this even come from? Like you said, someone trying to probably get clicks, someone trying to get attention. Oh, Macho Man had this thing going on with Stephanie. That's why he never. No, business. It's all been said before. Business issues, wanting to get his family into the Hall of Fame. I think Benny said it, that Macho was in talks to come back to WWE. There was even rumors like a couple weeks before his death, he put out a video kind of hinting that he might be coming back to WWE. I think, especially with Vince's heartfelt promo on commentary when Randy left, there's not much more to say about this. It's it's a gross rumor.
Right. I agree. All right, guys, we got to wrap up. So here in my house, since we have to close everything up so that you don't hear a bunch of crap going on while we're doing the show. So we need to turn the AC on in this place and get some airflow through here. So before we do that really quickly, let's let everybody get their final words in. Plug whatever you got going on. We want to hear from you. We want our Sims Nation to be able to find you and follow you wherever you are. So, Doc, take it away. Go first since you're right here on the screen.
Well, I'm wearing my America shirt, Macho Man America. I've got my new album, Freedom Rock, available wherever you stream music, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. Just look up Dr. Haywood, look up Freedom Rock. Blast it at your 4th of July barbecue. Celebrate 250 years of this great nation of the red, white, and blue. I think the track everyone's going to love is 250 Birthdays. Some spicy lyrics, but a lot of fun. I think it might make you laugh. I think it might surprise you. Check out Freedom Rock, available wherever you stream your patriotic music.
All right, love it. All right, George, your turn. Your final words for our Sims Nation and our audience today. Take it away, buddy.
Hey guys, everyone knows that I'm all big about making sure you get your life back in order, your health in order, and you reach your fitness goals. So if you'd like to hit any of that, make sure you get the DDPY Now app. Go join TU, and if you're looking for a workout in, I do one-on-one Zooms, and I do in-person classes and one-on-one. So hit me up, get you go started. Till then, guys.
Awesome. All right, and last but not least, we have the legend himself, Benny the Jet. Take it away, sir. What do you got coming up?
Yeah, catch me on Monday night at 6 o'clock for True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Playa, and Dangerous Dave. And then every Wednesday at 7:30 for When It Was Real, my wrestling podcast with Nikita Brezhnikov on the Playa Entertainment Network, as well as every Saturday morning on the Positively Pat Sims Show.
That's awesome. We love having you here. I love having all you guys here. And before we take off for the day, I want to remind you guys, head on over to positivelypatsims.printful.me where you can pick up your Positively Pat Sims merch, including this hat, actually hats from all of our shows, T-shirts from all of our shows. We've got yoga mats. We've got I don't know if we might have the blankets up. I'm not sure yet, but we got a lot of different products. Mouse pads for sure. I know we got those as well. So make sure you get on over there and pick up your Positively Pat Sims merch. And then, of course, make sure you head on over to Amazon right now and pick up your copy of Vengeance. You can get it on Amazon Kindle, paperback, and hardcover, and with all new lower pricing there as we pave the way for Vengeance Part 2, Blood of the Cross, which is going to be released on July 3rd. So we're less than a month away from the release of book number 2. Amazon Kindle pre-orders are available right now. So if you want to read this book on day one, get on over to Amazon and pre-order your Kindle version today. And of course, if you go to any of our music streaming platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Pandora, and more, you can hear Catching Stars, which is my very first original album that is available right now, featuring 12 songs that are all mine. And in just a couple of months, we're going to be releasing our second album, and I'm very much looking forward to that. And then on Thanksgiving Day, we will be releasing the Positively Pat Sims Christmas album. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss any of what we got coming up here, both on WANT, the Positively Pat Sims YouTube channel, and, of course, with all the additional stuff that I'm working on and doing. It's all good. It's all here for you guys. It's here to entertain you. It's here to make you feel. It's here to tell a story, and it's all for you. So make sure you take advantage of as much of it as you possibly can. So today I want to say another special thank you to all of you listening on WANT, watching here on YouTube. I want to thank my special guest, Doc Haywood. I want to thank Benny the Jet Scala, and I want to thank George Fenmore for being a part of this very controversial show. And if you want to listen to WANT, they are available 24/7 at WANTradio.com, or you can download the Live 365 app on any of your devices, and you can listen to WANT Radio from there. So guys, that's going to do it for the Positively Pat Sims show. We're going to close out the way we always do, the only way that's appropriate. Take it easy, and if it's easy, take it twice. So long, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week for all of our Positively Pat Sims content.
The lights are dim, but the room still hums with the echoes of laughter and the moments we spun. Every honest word is like a stone in a stream. It rippled, it lingered, it shaped our dream. And if you ever wonder where I'll be, look to the screen, I'll be there, you'll see. Goodbye to the faces that stayed in the glow. Goodbye to the voices I always know. This isn't an end, just a bend in the road. Goodbye for now, my friends, my show. The cameras rolled and the stories grew. Each review a mirror of me and you. Through coffee stains and late night calls, we built a world behind these walls.